Perl sessions. We just started there. So I think we had a little gap. So quick recap of what we have tried to understand there is Perl is basically a scripting language. It's widely used in different applications, and it's a programmer's toolbox for maybe writing unit test cases and even for testing people for writing their frameworks and developing their frameworks and doing the testing. And Perl is widely used for common gateway interface programming is what already we discussed, and it was developed by Larry Wall. This is just a recap, so I'm just going a little fast. So we already discussed that the most important components with respect to Perl, it has got three different categories of variables. This is scalars, which is indicated by dollar, and then array with respect to @ symbol, and then a hash with percentage symbol. So scalars also come in three different kinds is what we thought. So especially for numbers, integer, strings, and stuff. And now coming to numerical literals, we have already discussed on them. The way how we have to represent, if at all $x is equal to 10, it is an integer. If $x is equal to 10.2, then it automatically take that scalar is taken as a float. We delimited by single quote or double quote is what we have discussed, and then we also said like there is a concept called interpolation as I highlighted here. So this particular interpolation is possible for string. Okay, then we also have discussed that we can have a delimiter with respect to any of these symbols provided they are also matched on the right side. So then we also have a concept of empty string. Then, as I also discussed, scalar variables names always begin with dollar followed by digits and underscores. So, for example, here we have seen $x, where we have assigned $x is equal to 3, and then we try to see that this particular value of $x. This is what is called, I told, as interpolation, right? So, whenever you want to write or print something, and then you want to also incorporate the value of that particular scalar variable, then we interpolate. So here actually it is a, whenever you have it double quoted, it is a string. But here the luckiest thing is that we have $x, so which automatically will take the $x value whatever we have assigned earlier in the program. So unassigned variables have the value undef, which is by default. So undef converts to 0 as a number and as a null string if it is a defined as a string. And I mean, as I told you, like whenever you're trying to use this particular unassigned variable, let's say $x, if you have not assigned it as is equal to 3 or something. So automatically what will happen if you say $x plus 1, it is automatically taken as the $x value. Since you have not assigned anything, it will take 0 because you are trying to add it with a number. If you say $x plus hello, then it will automatically say take that as a null string. So it just prints whatever you are concatenating, like hello for example. So it also has a large number of predefined variables, which is like $_, $caret, which are all special characters, and then they are inbuilt variables, which are otherwise called predefined. Then I think we stopped at this point where arithmetic operators, addition, minus, multiplication, which is indicated by star, and then a division. So here, if you can already clearly see that this particular division symbol, what is it giving us? 5 by 2 is good. It's like 2.5. That is the answer you're getting here. So is it giving what? It's giving the quotient here. Okay, and then the modulo operator. The modulus operator is there here. Then exponential operator when you have double star. Then the unary operators, which is either minus minus or plus plus. So this is called unary operators. So how we are going to use this and all, we will see further. And then here operators precedence. So generally we have already learned in your schooling and all, right? We have learned BODMAS rule, BODMAS, BODMAS we call it, right? That is the way we can try to most of the time remember how the precedence goes. So when I say BODMAS, it is B for brackets, O for off, that when you are removing the brackets, D for division, M for multiplication, A for addition, S for subtraction. That's what the BODMAS rule was. So similar BODMAS rule applies here as well. So here we say unary operator, we just discussed in the previous slide that this plus plus or minus minus is a unary operator. Therefore, this is non-associative. So, so we already know, right? So associative is like whenever you say a of x plus y, so that is like ax plus ay if you expand it. So that is something associative. So here, whenever you have any expression and where this plus plus or minus minus is being used, for example, x plus plus, if x is equal to x plus plus is nothing but x is equal to x plus 1. So if x is equal to 1 initialized, x plus plus will automatically give you 2, implies x is equal to x plus 1. We have already assigned 1 to it, so 1 plus 1 is 2. That's how it is. But since if such expressions, unary expressions, operators are used in a given expression, then that is non-associative. So in the example that I just told earlier, a of x plus y, if you have expression such where you have unary operator in that expression, then it cannot be associated like that. But similarly, unary plus, unary minus, and then right. So the association is from the right. So whenever it sees plus and minus in an expression, it will try to evaluate this expression from right to left. Similarly, whenever it sees star, division, or modulus operator, it will evaluate the expression from left to right. And similarly for this binary, plus and minus. So we will see some examples. Now, then coming to string operators, a string is a single unit, a scalar. I mean, as I discussed earlier, everything boils down to scalar variables, whether it is an integer or a string, whatever. So now, the period, that is nothing but the dot symbol here, right? Within this quotes, if you see, this is the period. I'm sorry. So this, within this quotes, you see a dot symbol, like the full stop we call it, right, in English. So this is used as a concatenation operator. So Perl does not overload operators. So that is another thing we'll discuss later. What is overloading? Or I can tell you one clear example is, for example, if I say overloading, plus is an overloading of operators. If I say plus, generally what is the use of plus? It is nothing but it is used in addition. So 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. That's what we know. But in some languages, if I say, let's say, my string is hello. If I say hello plus world, automatically my output will be hello world. If I try to print, that is, though we are using text, because I am trying to add two strings, it is trying to concatenate. Means the plus operator is behaving like a concatenation operator. But that is in other languages. But Perl does not overload operators. Therefore, they have defined a special operator for concatenation. So in other languages, you can still use plus to concatenate two strings. I hope you all are aware of what is concatenation. Concatenation is nothing but joining of two strings. So if I say hello, and I'm repeating again, if I have a string x1 is equal to hello, and if I have a string x2 is equal to world, if I say x1 plus x2, then it becomes hello world in other languages. But because plus there is overloaded, the operator there is overloaded, means its functionality in the context of strings is being changed as a concatenation operator instead of addition operation. If at all you are using the same plus in the context of adding two integers, it is doing the addition operation. But since Perl does not support this, they have defined a special symbol called period, otherwise a dot symbol. So if I have to concatenate two strings, how do I do? For example, if you see $A is assigned cant, then $A dot a loop. Okay, so this is, therefore the result will be cant a loop. Okay, so that's how it is. Now the X operator indicates repetition. So if, for example, what is this X operator here? Generally we know multiplication is for, therefore they are defining special meanings for different operations or implementations they want to do. Therefore, in other languages, if I say 4 star, for example, see this is equals to is 1, it is given in the quotes. So it's a, let's say it's a string. Now if I say x of 4, So here it is, what is it meaning? The X operator indicates what? Repetition, correct? Therefore, what we are indicating the interpreter is that you please print this 4 times. That is the reason you see 1, 2, 3, 4 times that is equal to is printed. Okay. So if at all, if it is any other language, then ideally this may be replaced by star. Generally star is for what? Multiplication. Since operator overload is supported in other languages, maybe star can be still used. But Perl does not support, therefore they have defined X for this. I hope it's clear. So predefined unary operators can be used as functions by simply parenthesizing the operands. So this we'll discuss in little detail later. So now what I'll discuss more is what are the different functions that will help us when we are trying to operate on the strings. Because you are trying to, what is most of the time we have used of the Perl, we try to use it for log parsing, maybe we try to use it in some development unit test cases and stuff. So there may be different utilities or different contexts that you have to use with respect to the real time, wherein you may have to need a lot of inbuilt functions. So here, for example, the chomp, that is the name of the function. So what is the parameter of the chomp? It's a string. So removes any, what is the action that it does? Removes any terminating new line characters from its parameters. Returns the number of removed characters. So when I say chomp hello, so the input is hello, for example. So now what will happen if at all the hello has got a new line character, automatically it will chomp that new line character. Okay, and if at all there are like such new line characters, there are 4 new line characters, automatically it will chomp those and it will say that I have removed 4 characters. That's what a chomp function does. Similarly, the length returns the number of characters in its parameter string. So whenever you want to find the length of the string, unlike in C or any other language, right, you need not have to write, count each one, increment your counter, and then go further. Just you use the length of string. So for example, length of string. So what is my string here? If I say my string is $x is equals to hello. Okay, then if I say chomp, and then let's say it has got a new line character $x. So what it will return is, it will just return me when I print chomp of this, right? So if I just trying to take $y is equals to this. Now if I say print $y, automatically this should give me what? My output will be so my output should be just hello without a new line character. This is how it will be. It will not, it will just remove this and it will say that it has removed one character, it has removed this thing, one new line character. Similarly, LC is a lowercase. So whenever you have a string, let's say returns its parameter string with all the uppercase letters, convert to lowercase. Now you have a hello world where hello is all capitals. Now you want to make sure that all hello is converted into lowercase. Just LC of hello you give, it will convert into a lowercase because you have written in uppercase. Similarly, the vice versa is UC, means uppercase. It converts your given lowercase string into an uppercase string. Similarly, hex. So it returns the decimal value of the hexadecimal number in its parameters. So suddenly you want to find what is the decimal equivalent of a hexadecimal number. So 0x004. So or 0xab. You want to find out. Then automatically if you use this function and give that input variable, it will give you the hex. Similarly, join. So join, what it will do? A character and the string concatenated together with list of strings. So what it will do is join will join or concatenate 2 strings. It is similar to what it was the period symbol that we have seen, right? Earlier we have seen the dot symbol, the period symbol, which is used for concatenation. So the join function is also used for a similar purpose. So whenever you have to join 2 strings, hello and world, for example, then obviously you can use join function, join hello and world, and it will automatically join that. So I will show you the examples as well. Yeah, so this is the different functions that we can use on the string. So now coming to assignment operators. Assignment operators we already know is equal to sign is used. That is nothing but assignment operator. If I say $x is equal to 3, what does that mean? Means I am trying to assign a value of 3 to the scalar variable $x. Now compound assignment operators are similar to C, C++ and Java. I hope you people already are aware of Java sessions, but still let me be clear here. So $x star is equals to 3. What is it doing? Multiplies the value of $x by 3. So this is same as $x is equals to $x into 3. So if at all any of such unary expressions are given, like for example $x star is equal to 3. So when you expand this, what does that mean? $x is equals to $x into 3. This is the meaning of such expression that you see. Similarly, if at all instead of star, if you have plus here, let's say $y plus is equals to 4. So that $y is equals to $y plus 4. So here whenever I am referring to dollar, we will have to clearly remember that it is just a scalar variable. So in any language we have variables. So here the variables in Perl are defined by $x. It's a scalar variable. If it is an array, we already discussed, at the rate symbol is used. If it is an array, indicates, means this is array. Similarly, I also discussed hash means, percentage h means hash. So we will discuss more on how to deal with arrays, hashes and later. So now the assignment operator. So we have already discussed what $x is equals to 3 will give us. $x star is equal to 3 will give you what? And what if it's all we replace it with plus? We have already discussed that. Let's say you're writing some code, you don't know currently, or you know that you want to you have some special purpose for that function or something you're writing. So it's better you use a hash and say this is for addition or whatever you want. So whatever you're defining, for example, let's say I'm writing a function sub. We'll discuss more on this later. And if I say add, I'm writing a function like this. So obviously, what does two numbers? Something like this. So what I mean to say here is the catch here is the hash symbol that we are using here is used for writing comments. So whenever you want to write a very good programming, the good programmer style is that he should always provide the comments along his code, so that others, whoever is reading, it will be easy for them to understand. If you are not having comments, then that's not a good programming style. Now, keyboard inputs. Perl treats all inputs and outputs as file input and file output. So physical files have external names, but all files are referred to by internal names called file handles. Generally, what are the physical files? For example, I am storing some data, something. So that's what a physical file name is. But all the files are internally referred or file handles. Though we are saving them some files in your computer, if at all you are saving some data, right? You might be trying to type your resume, you save it. But internally, whenever you're trying to open that file, how does internally things are happening? They are treated as a file handles. So the file handle for that particular file, when whichever you're trying to open, is created, and then what is it? Where are they showing the output? Whenever you are opening some file, it is showing on your screen. That is nothing but std out. That is nothing but the console output. usually the screen by default. Similarly, standard input. This is the keywords actually which you have to remember. So stdin is the console input, usually the keyboard, and stderr, that is called standard error, is the console error output, usually the screen. So what is happening? Suppose suddenly we want to type some command. Suppose let's say this is my terminal. I will just type hi. So what is happening here? Hi is not recognized as internal or external command. So what is happening is, this is a standard error. It doesn't know what hi is. Therefore, it is trying to give a standard error. And where is it giving it? But my keyboard. Okay. The console output, usually the screen, and standard error I have just shown just by typing some commands which it does not understand. So it is trying to give the error to the standard output console. So the execution environment of the Perl script might redirect these predefined handles to take the inputs from other sources such as physical file or put outputs to other targets. So what we can do right now, these are the standard inputs, right? You give the input through standardly, then it is giving the output onto the screen, even if it is a positive output or an, if it is an error, it is throwing onto the screen. But now let's say you don't want to do that. You want to redirect your inputs from, let's say, from some file, and similarly you want to redirect your output to some other file. So still that is also possible with respect to Perl, is what this indicates. Okay. So you can redirect your inputs as well as outputs. So what you can do, you can ask your program to read a file. So how to read a file and all, we will see later. Let's say that you want to process some students' data. So in your class, you are having all the students' name, roll number, your hall ticket number. Now there are 100 students. So 100 students, you cannot enter the name from the keyboard every time. Now you have a file which is already stored. Let's say it's a TXT file or an Excel file or something. Now what you can ask your program to do is, you can ask your program to open that file. So whenever a physical file has to be opened, as it clearly indicates, it is always treated as a file handle. So you can open a file handle in your program. You can open that file and read line by line and do whatever the operations you want on that file and display or store the output in the format you require. Let's say you want to get student's name all starting with the letter S, or maybe you want to get data of number greater than 200 or ending with 200, for example, the article number ending with 200 series. So you can do such operations, whatever you like. You can grab that particular data using your program by giving that file as an input to your program, and you can either display your output to the console, that is your monitor, or you can write back that data into another file. So suddenly you want to pack this data, or you have to mail this data to somebody. So what do? You don't have to put it on the console output, right? You have to do it or redirect your output to the file. So where whatever the operations you do on that file, let's say all the hall ticket series with 200, you will get the data using your logic in the program, and you will copy it into another file. Let's say hall ticket numbers.txt. Then what you can do, it will create a file and it will write all the data into that. So it is, your job is simply just take that file, mail to the person who requires it. So that's how you can simplify some manual jobs. Usefulness of this. So standard Perl usage. So what is it saying? Since in most cases the terminating new line character is not designed, the chomp operator is used to remove it. That's what we have already discussed. So where is it generally used? A chomp function. What did we discuss? The chomp function was used on the strings, the scalar strings that we give. So most of the time what will happen, let's say you have written a function, your program, and in the program you want to give the input through your keyboard. So whenever you are trying to give input through a keyboard, what we will do, we will type the inputs, and after that we have to hit the enter key. Hitting the enter key is nothing but a new line character. So now whenever you want to process that input, if you are not chomping it, chomp is like cutting it, right? So if you don't chomp it, what will happen? The new line character is also getting processed and it may lead to different meanings. Character at all. So whenever you take input from the keyboard and where you have entered some or hit the enter key, so you can do a chomp of that input, whatever you get in $X, and you can process it. Okay, so this can be, this two lines can be combinedly written like this: chomp of $X is equal standard in. Chomp has got a function, has got some input. So $X is a variable, so it is able to take the value, whatever the standard in is, the keyboard input that you are giving, still it is able to take it. So what is it giving here? The assignment operator returns a reference to $X, which is passed to the chomp. So what is the reference? We will see later. So using a diamond operator, for example, it is always starting and ending with a greater than and less than symbol. So what is it indicating? They are called as a diamond operator. It is otherwise called. So using this without a file handle has a special meaning in the Perl. Now each argument on the command line is interpreted as a file name. So the lines are read from these files in succession. So what is it trying to tell? In the command line, whenever you are giving like this, and if you are defining something here in between, that is a file handle name. If I don't give anything in between, whatever you are giving in the command line. So what is the command line? Let me show you this way. I'll try to share a command screen. For showing the examples, we have some restriction in installing some softwares. Because there is I'm not able to directly execute those programs. So let's say I have a command prompt like this. Now, see, this is an example I'm just showing. So for example, Perl, let's say test.pl. This is a file that you wrote a program in. Okay. Now in that program, if at all this kind of symbol, whatever we discussed just now on the PPT, right? So this kind of symbol is used. What does that mean is, here whatever so this is expecting some input. So whatever the lines you're writing here, okay, like this, these all are taken as a files. One file, 2 file, 3. It will process everything as a separate file. So that's what. So how you define, I'm just showing. Okay. So I think this is the best. How are you? So the moment I try to execute this is an online editor which I'm trying to use. So here we can see so here, hi all, how are you? We have seen here. I'm just trying to check if we can clear this. If I just, what is the difference here? If I just put a new line character here and execute it. So here the cursor is moving down to the next line. So earlier also we have seen some examples, right, for concatenation. We can see that quickly here. If I say hello, this works. Ideally it should not work. So it is giving some error. So what is our this thing? Period symbol. So you have seen this. If I use plus, because operator overloading is not supported, it was not allowing me to. I can also concatenate with let's say new line character, for example, execute. So here, see, now I can also use charm function. Let's say what is the issue with this? Because most of the time there should be some inbuilt libraries that should be supported. I'm not sure if this online tutorial is supporting that. Okay, fine. Let's move with our this thing. I just thought suddenly that this may be helping us to proceed instead of having no interpreter at all. So we have just seen the diamond operator. Screen output. The print function takes as an operand a list of one or more strings separated by commas. So there is no new line character provided automatically. It must be literally included. Similarly, C style printf can also be used in Perl. If at all you are already used to C coding and you don't want to use just print, you want to use printf, and whatever the syntax that is printf supports, it is also supported in Perl. Okay, so we also have an example here that demonstrates the input from standard console and output to the standard console. So let me check if that execute. Let me check. There is a file which is an example file that will demonstrate us what it is stated. We will see this in the next session. I'll show you clearly getting this files and the right interpreter. So what it says is Perl from the command line, as I have already shown you earlier, right? So how do you execute your program? Let's say you have saved your program. Most of the time, how do we do a save our programs? You may open a notepad. You can write a program. Then you save that as a .pl file. PL stands for the Perl files. So now once you save that file, you can use this command Perl, your file name, whatever it is, .pl. Then automatically it should execute. Okay. So this is how you run it from the command line. So you can also add some command flags like -w for warnings, -c for compilation without running. So whenever you want to use this, first of all, I use this -w quad val -pl, right? So automatically what it will do, it will throw any warnings. Sometimes what will happen is we ignore certain small things which may not be errors, but still it can be warnings. And then if you are not using this -w, automatically the interpreter will ignore that, and then it will run your program. Maybe the warnings are not so important at that point of time, but maybe that warning can lead to error if you are writing a complicated program or a series of programs which is all compiled into a single project. So that's where warnings are also important to handle. So how do you get to know if there are any warnings or not is using -w. Now, then the input would be taken from the file quad.dat by using this input. So here what is happening, I have already shown you earlier, right? This example on the command prompt. I have shown without -w. Here the example is with -w. So where it is indicating also populate the warnings. So what this file is doing, it is trying to take this file as an input. So here your program as I told you an example earlier, right? Like students.txt file is there, or students.dat file is there, some data file that. So then you can give that as an input to your file based on your logic, so that it will accept this file. So whenever you are giving a file like this as an input to your Perl file, you have to make sure that you are handling this file internally as a file handle. How you do that, we'll see later when we discuss on files. Similarly, Perl also has control statements, a standard array of control structures for managing the flow of execution of the program. So here, control statements depend on the value of control expression to determine the execution flow. So how is it? Excuse me. You want to know whether some value is true or false. Based on that, you want to proceed further. So that time, or based on some condition, you want to have a check and then proceed further. Or maybe that you want to execute something and then check for some condition. So in all such cases, your control expressions will be helping us. So control expressions usually involve relational operators. So how are we achieving the control expressions? Using the relational operators. So what are relational operators? Relation implies smaller than, greater than. Okay, all these generally are relational operators. I'll show you in the next table what are all there. So so there are different operators for strings and for number operands. See, if you see the relational operators, as I told you, right? Less than, greater than, equal to, not equal to, comparison, all this. But if you see at this table very clearly, this is especially for numeric operands. Sorry. And if you see the, oops, excuse me. If you see the one on the right side, this is exclusively operated with respect to strings. So whenever you are trying to equate two strings, is hello equal to world, if you want to find, then you cannot use this symbol. You have to use EQ. Is if hello EQ world, then it will try to check if they both strings are same or not, and then it will give you output whether they are equal or not. Similarly, not equal to, here with respect to string operands, it is NE. It's simple, right? So you use this kind of. So whenever it is numerical operands, we use exclamation is equal to. This is not equal to. I think we are all pretty much aware of this. Similarly, less than. Here it is LT. Less than. Greater than symbol is GT for strings. For integers, less than, equal to, greater than, equal to, and comparative operator. So comparison, what it will do? Most of the time, all these relation operators will give you either true or false result. Okay. But whereas the comparative operator, or even this is a comparison with respect to numerics, that's what we discussed, right? Similarly, this is a comparison operator with respect to string operands. So that will give you -1, 0 or +1. Means, what does that mean? Because we want to have any one result. Let's say I'm comparing two strings, so I use CMP. So if they are equal, it should give me 0. If they are one, let's say left string is, I'm sorry, I have a cold. If you're not clear, excuse me for that. So if at all the left string you are comparing is let's try to check. 1 second, I will try to see. So the first 6 operators produce +1 if true, or 0 or empty, or null if false. So that's what I just discussed earlier, right? So the first 6 here, all this except this compare, except this called row, the above all relational operators, they give you true or false. That is +1 if it is true, or it is empty if false. Okay, and the last operator gives you any 3. +1 if the first operand is less than the second one, sorry, -1 in that case. +1 if the first operand is greater than the second one, and similarly 0 if both are equal. And relational operators are also non-associative. So implies you cannot have 3 comparisons at a time. You cannot have, let's say, $A less than $B less than $C, for example. So it doesn't know how to compare this. If it is associative, what would happen? Probably you can put it in the, for example, the braces, if you put like this. So this is one option. So if you are trying to put them in the braces, it is just two strings. But here, this is that is non-associative. You cannot directly have this. If $A is less than $B, now because these are grouped, yes, this is possible. Now it will just compare with this. But if at all you don't have it grouping, then it is difficult for it to have a association. So it cannot, it doesn't know whether it has to compare from left to right or from right to left. Okay, so therefore that is syntactically wrong. Similarly, Perl provides two forms of Boolean operators. So this is not symbol that we have already seen as part of relational operators. Also, this was used with the along with is equal to sign. So here not symbol is used for the exclamation. Ampersand is and two pipe symbols are or. So have a precedence above the assignment operators, but below the other operators. So whenever you have a, so these Boolean operators have got a higher precedence. So whenever you have this Boolean operators in your expression, these are evaluated first when compared to the assignment operators. Let's say if $x, if $x greater than, or let's say $x is equal to 4, or $x is equal to 7 if I say. So what should happen is, first of all, the Boolean operators, this gets evaluated first. Because $x is equal to 4 or $x is equal to 5, they are assignment operators. So first this gets evaluated. These are mostly helpful for you whenever you are writing some loops. For example, in the if condition, if $x is equal to 4 and $x less than 5. So what will happen is $x is equal to 4, okay, but and symbol if it is true, automatically the condition is evaluated, not evaluated properly. So automatically it will not look, after and is evaluated, then only it will come to the assignment operators. So and or and not have precedence below any other operators. So except for assignment operator, they have a higher precedence, that is equals to, that's the assignment operator. Other than that, for any other operator, they have a lesser precedence. So in this example, if you see $A is equal to a file handle is given, empty file handle, or die. What is this? Generally, whenever you are seeing any Perl programs, you see this kind of expressions very frequently, or die, followed by some message, no input. So how this is treated is what he is trying to show. So here $A is equals to the input, the standard, the input here, or die. This is how it is going to group them internally. Okay, because we have got assignment operator here and a Boolean operator here. As we have already discussed, the Boolean operator will have a higher precedence when compared to an assignment operator. So what is happening? It is first grouping this whole sentence up to here as 2, because it has given the precedence to the Boolean operator, which is OR. Therefore now it will understand how to evaluate. The moment if this particular condition is false, then it will try to execute saying that there is no input given. Let's say you have not given any input to $A, then it will show this error saying die, no input. So there's somewhere harsh way of writing die there, but that's how Perl programmers have designed that actually. So they put an error message like this. So this causes the program to terminate if no input is read from this symbol. So what did we discuss about this symbol? Whenever this kind of diamond symbol is given, it is expecting input from the keyboard. Okay, I mean it is not standard input here. It is expecting that whatever the lines of inputs that you are giving, it is treated as a file, separate file. Similarly, for example, if there is input, the next line is assigned to $A. So $A is equals to something or die. Parses as $A is equals to, this is how it is being parsed. So this causes the program to terminate if no inputs are read from the file handle. That is a diamond symbol here. Similarly, we have selection and loop statements. So we can have for loop and all. A block of statements in Perl is a sequence of statements enclosed in a pair of curly braces. So whenever you are trying to define a block in Perl, you can always define them with respect to a curly braces like this and write your blocks of code, whatever you want right here. Okay, just an example I'm showing. So control statements in Perl require blocks of statements as components rather than allowing a single statements without the braces. So what will happen, control statements as we discussed earlier. So if at all you have a block like this, then it is meaningful to use the control statements to execute this block. Otherwise, just for single lines, we don't have to have a, or it is not very mandatory to write a control statements there. The if statement syntax, this is how it is. If control expression and a block, and then you can have, see, one catch here is the else if. If you have if condition, if control expression, if this control expression is true, then you are asking it to execute this block of code, and you are saying else if. So here else, if you see, the e is missing in the else. It is ELSIF, else if. It is not ELSEIF. It will throw an error. So if you are writing if else, that is okay. If you are writing if else if like that, if you are trying to do a loop, then you should always make sure there is else if is written like this. It is not mandatory that it should be followed by else if, okay, or else. So you can generally have if else most of the time. So we can use that, achieve that using while. For example, while some expression or a control expression is true, then you execute this block. So the while executes the block as long as the expression is true. So it keeps on repeating, right? So while it will, as long as a control expression is true, it keeps on evaluating this. Now you want to only do it to certain time or certain iterations and then stop it. Then you can use until block. The until reverses the sense of while. So you please control or execute this block of code until this expression is true. Let's say that you want to have execute something where some expression is greater than or less than, let's say some x is less than 100. Until that you want to execute some block of code, then you can use this. The first statement is having an initial expression, a control expression and an incremental expression, and then followed by a block of code. So what we do here is in the first for loop, most of the time, for example, I'll give you here for, let's say my variable is $I is equals to 0. Okay, semicolon. That is initial expression. Now control expression. So what is control expression? My $I is less than 10. Now incremental expression. I should also increment this $I plus plus. I can do this. Now as long as this for loop is true, I mean executing fine, what will happen is I can try to have a block of code here. So what is my block of code? Maybe I want to print $I. So this way what will happen is, for this variable, scalar variable $I is equal to 0 until it is less than 10, which is a control expression. So here this control expression may not be so simple, it can be complicated also. you can try to evaluate a big expression here actually. So that based on that control expression true or false, this loop keeps on executing. So what will happen, this is a post increment we call it as. So automatically it will print the 0 to 9 because it is less than 10. This is a simple example I'm just giving. People might be aware of the for loop in other languages. It's the same as in other languages. The Perl also supports the same way. Okay. So loop labels. A loop may be provided a label by prefixing a name and a colon to the beginning of the loop. So the loop is something more new you will find in the Perl. So the last operator can have a loop label as an operand. So what does it implies is, let's say in between you are doing some code. As I told you earlier, the Perl, for example, I showed you the Perl thing, right? I mean, sorry, the for loop, right? So whatever the expressions you had here, then you can have a label actually. We can have a label like this code here. So that's what that means. There are very special cases which generally we don't use, but we can. I will see if I have an example to tell. Now, as I already discussed earlier, the dollar underscore are the inbuilt predefined variables. So the variable underscore is often an implicit operand for operators. So the statement print will print the value of dollar underscore. The statement chomp will chomp the value of dollar underscore. So what is it they are trying to tell is it is an inbuilt implicit operand. So you can do these chomp functions or print functions you can use on this particular variable. Like how do we do it $x, for example, chomp $x we do, right? So like that, though it is an inbuilt dollar underscore is an inbuilt variable, we can do that. So where they are mostly aware useful is, especially this kind of variables are helpful whenever you are using regular expressions or whenever you are using a standard input without assigning explicit to a variable. Then you can, whatever your the variables are captured, you can try to take them. And don't use dollar underscore much because it is difficult for other programmers who are reading your program to interpret what it means every time. So you can use it sparingly, not often. So this is all what we have discussed so far is with respect to what were the different types of scalar variables we have and how are they interpreted as numbers, float. Then I'm just trying to do a recap. How it was also used as strings, how the scalar strings are there, what are the different functions we had on scalar strings, and what are the different relational operators, control statements, relational operators, so for statement, while loop, if else. All this is what we have seen so far. That was a recap. So now, the most important of all the scalar variables that we had was, initially we had a $x or whatever the scalar, which is indicated with a dollar. We also discussed that there is something called @ of x, for example. It is nothing but array. So that's what here he says. An array holds a list of scalar values. So now, so far we have seen that there is one scalar value or 5 scalar values suddenly. But since scalar values of all are of same type, for example, let's say if $x is equal to 10, $y is equal to 20, values, and they're all of same type of integer. Now why can't I have a list all stored together? That's where a similar type of values or scalar values can be stored together as a list, and that we call it as an array. So different types of scalar data can be in the same array. So arrays have dynamic size, that is they can increase and decrease in the size of the as a program is executing. So that is dynamic. Unlike in other programs where, example, if I say have to define in C an array, you might have said x of 10, means that is fixed. It has got 10 index values, 0 to 9. But here in Perl, the size can decrease or increase dynamically. You need not have to declare them explicitly in the starting of your program. Just give me a minute. With what is like fundamentals of arrays. As I just told you, or we discussed that different types of scalar data can be in the same array. Now, a list literals they're calling it is. For example, if you see here, whatever is in the simple braces that they have enclosed them, A, B, C, D, they are different literals here. So this is a list. So what all different literal, whenever you are trying to use a simple braces and enclose them, that can be called as a list. Similarly, in between, if you have another group, that can be called as a sublist. So what is now array? It's a combination, right? So array is nothing but it is trying to store this particular list. So the name of an array variable always begins with a character at the rate that we have already discussed. So how is the example of an array? How do you declare an array? This is how it is. At the rate is equals to, for example, if I say 1, 2, 3, and like this. So the beauty of the Perl here is you can have different types of scalars. So here it is not, if at all in C or any other language, right? You will have either integer array or a float array or a string or whatever. But here, if you see, it can interpolate with any other or different types of scalars. So 1, 2 is an integer. 3 here is again a string. So here This is a hexadecimal, but saying everything is can be together grouped in this list and it can still be stored as an array. That is the beauty of Perl. So an array assignment can create a new arrays as a copy of the original. So whenever you want to do some operations on this and you don't want to disturb this, you can always happily assign it to another array like this, and then automatically your at the rate b will have all the values that what it has. But since it is just a copy, it is not the directly referring to the memory of what at the rate a is. So whatever the operations you do at $b, sorry, at the rate b, they will not be impacting the original array. That's what the copy here indicates. Now, so scalar and list context. So there is something that we have to understand with respect to arrays. Now we already know that an expression in Perl is evaluated in a given context. So whatever is the expression, based on the context, it gets, as I told you, right? If $x is equal to 10, it is treated as a integer scalar. If $x is equal to some string, it is treated as a string scalar. So that's what it means. Perl is evaluating with respect to the context. So the expression is always evaluated with respect to the context. So now $a is equal to some expression is there, expression or some value. So the expression on the right side is evaluated to a scalar context. Why? Because you are assigning this expression to a scalar variable, that is $a. Now the same expression, if at all you are assigning on the other hand to at the rate. So what it should do? The expression on the right side is evaluated to a list context. Why? At the rate is referred to as an array. Array is nothing but a list. So an array or list, if you see here clearly, don't get confused. We may interchangeably, we can use array or list. So array or list evaluated in the scalar context evaluates to the length of the list. So whenever you are assigning it like this, it will only give you the length of it in the scalar context. So in this example, the scalar context, if I try to shape this, right? So what the scalar context, what it will do? So $a underscore will give me the 1, 2, 3, 4 elements are there. So it will say the length of the array is 4. That's what it means by scalar context. Now parallel assignments. Parallel assignments is possible in Perl again. So let's say you want to have $x is equal to 10, $y is equal to 20, $z is equal to 30. Instead of writing them in multiple lines, you can group together so that it will take them in sequence like this. So one will be assigned to $a, the first one will be assigned to the first scalar variable, the second number will be assigned to the second scalar variable, similarly the third one will be assigned to the third scalar. Okay, and so on. So you can have multiple values in a single line like this instead of having multiple lines step by step. Now here the advantage of this would be like this also, right? For example, whenever you want to swap two numbers, so whenever there, I think if you people are aware of writing some C programs or any other language, whenever you want to swap two numbers, so x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 20. I want the x to have 20 and y to have 10. That is swapping the values. What you used to generally have, you used to have a third variable, then swap with that. Or if it is in the same variable, then you add it plus or minus and then try to do that. But here, you don't need to have all such workarounds. Directly, $x, $y is equals to $y, $x if I say, automatically the values will be swapped. That is the advantage and shortcut we have in Perl. Now, how do you access the array element? Now we have already defined at the rate is equals to some ABC. Now how do we really define them? Or I mean, how do you access them basically? One second. So accessing an array element. So the element in an array are always indexed by integer numbers beginning with 0. So if at all, let's say at the rate array, at the rate a, this is a array variable. Okay. Now it is equals to or assigned with, let's say, this particular list a, b, c. Now I want to fetch what is or print this value a or print this value b. How do I do that? Means that Perl has given as an indexing to this particular list. The first element always starts with 0. The second placeholder will be 1 and so on so forth till n minus 1. So if I say it is 3 elements, so the index is 0, 1 and 2. So now if I say $a of 20 is equal to outfield, means what? I am trying to assign a new value into this array called outfield. The value of it is outfield. But which position I am inserting it at? 20th position. So will it get inserted? Yes. Unlike other languages, I told array can be dynamically increased or shrinked. So here the moment you say at the rate 20, currently the index is only from 0, 1 and 2. But still we are having here 20, therefore automatically it will expand the size of the array and make it as up to the 21 size. So because it is from 0 to at the 20th position, it is inserting the value outfield. The last subscript in the array, how do you find it is in there is like $#a. If I use this, what is a here? Name of the array variable. So if I do this, I can get the last subscript, means what is the size of the or length of that particular array. I can get it. So that is how we access the elements in the array, or we add the elements into an array. Now there is something like as we have already seen for statement, right? Similar to that, we also have for each statement. So for each statement allows convenient iterating through the elements of array or list. So now we want to go through the list conveniently, whatever is the array elements you want to see, or do some operations on that. You can use the for each actually. How do we use it? The syntax is like this: for each. This is different from for statement. So let's be very clear on this. This is for has got different format. For each has got a different format. So for each means for each of $x. So $x here is a new scalar variable. What is it operating on? The array variable at the rate a. Let's say some block of code is there. So what this block of code could be print something like this. So now for each $x of at the rate a, we are trying to print each value in the array. So $x can be new here, which was not defined. You can dynamically initialize or declare any scalar variables in Perl. Therefore, why we are saying $x here means every time you take each element is one single scalar value. Each single scalar value has to be stored in a scalar variable. That is the reason, though it is at the rate here array, we are trying to take $x. Dollar is a scalar. Okay. So now what this will do? It will iterate over the entire element list in this array. And if I do some print option here, if I do some print $x, but actually if you want to print the given array, you need not have to use for each every time. Provided you want to do some operations on that array list, then you have to use for each. Otherwise, if you want to just print what is in the array, you can do print at the rate array. It will give you automatically that particular values or the list. So as I discussed here, so what is it telling in each iteration? $x is an alias for the element. Each element from the array, when it is fetched into $x. So if $x is changed, the corresponding element of the array is changed. So you can do some operations on $x. If $x is equal to $x plus y, if you do, automatically the new array will be formed. So there are similar. Also we have some inbuilt functions called push, pop, shift, unshift. So these are different functions on the arrays, because you want to push some element into the array. So you can do push at the rate. So here $x inserts the value of $x at the end of the array. So what is it pushing is doing here? Push is always inserting in the value of scalar, whatever the $x. Let's say push at the rate array has got 3 elements. Now you are pushing 4. $x value is, let's say 4, or let's say some 10. Automatically it will push to the end of the array. So 1, 2, 3 / 10. It will be there if you try to print the array. Similarly, pop, it will remove the last value of the array and returns it. For example, you inserted what just now? We inserted 10. We popped. Now shift, what it will do? It will remove the first value of the array and returns it. Automatically, why it is called shift then? Because all the remaining elements in the array are shifted down one index. Means if I have, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 in the array. Now the moment I do shift, 1 will be popped out. So what will be remaining? 2, 3, 4. So you keep on shifting like this, the array becomes empty. Similarly, the reverse operation is unshift. Unshift will put the value. So what are we doing here? The syntax, if you see, array and the value you want to unshift. So let's say you want to say unshift at the rate a comma 10. Earlier we have already downsized it, right, by using shift. So earlier, now what is remaining in the array? 2, 3, 4. Automatically what will happen? Unshift at the rate 10 means it should be inserted in as the first element. So it becomes 10 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4. So index will be shifted by 1 up. Fine. So these are the different scalars and arrays that we have seen so far. So upcoming sessions we'll see what is the built-in functions. Okay, we also have hashes to look at. So we'll also see what is the hashes. I think yeah, I'm just carried away with this functions. I think we have built-in list functions. So the split function breaks strings into parts using a character to separate that. So this is also a function that you can still use on the array. So the die operator displays its list operands and then terminates the program. We already see what is the use of or usage of die. Whenever you want to throw some error, we are writing, right? Earlier programs we have seen this.
They have a class at 10 to 11.
So we'll see the examples in processnames.pl file, how they are working and all tomorrow on the next class. So logically I'm breaking it and closing down the session here so that from next session we can have hashes and further on with advanced concepts in Perl.